I thought I would do a follow-up to my last vlog because some of you asked good questions, questions that deserve answers. And if you were one of those who asked questions, you're not alone because a lot of people across the country have been asking questions. And therefore people in the news, in magazines, in the media, they've been answering a lot of these questions, addressing these questions. One of the common ones is, isn't it within the president's legal purview to fire a director of the FBI like James Comey? Yes, absolutely. It is. There's nothing illegal about firing a director. However, it depends upon the reason why. That's where the issue gets in. It gets into an area of law that refers to crime of intent. And Jeffrey Toobin at the New Yorker came up with an explanation for this. He wrote an article for the New Yorker titled, "The Answer to Whether Trump Obstructed Justice Now Seems Clear." And he gave the example of people buying stock. Say I sell you stock in a company. People buy and sell stock every day. There's no crime. You can buy and sell stock. I sell you stock, and then after you buy it, there's a downturn in the stock market. Your stock loses value. You've lost money. Is there a crime? No, because there's nothing illegal about selling stock. And people are told before you invest in the stock market, be sure you understand the inherent risks and decide how much you're willing to risk when you decide to invest in the stock market. So no crime has been committed. However, this is Jeffrey Toobin's example. What if I know a company is about to go belly up? They're about to close their doors, right? Their stock is worth nothing. But I tell you, I've got a good investment opportunity for you, and I sell you stock in that company. And then the company shutters its doors, you lose all your money. Selling stock isn't a crime, but fraud is. You see, selling stock with the intent of defrauding you out of your money, that's a crime. And that's where we start getting into what is obstruction of justice here. Firing someone is not obstruction of justice. Well, what is obstruction of justice? And he quotes part of the law here. This is when someone influences, obstructs, or impedes, or endeavors to influence, obstruct, or impede the due administration of justice. So let's use Comey now here as the example. James Comey. If James Comey had committed say there were allegations of misconduct filed against him. He had committed some sort of sexual improprieties toward the women in the FBI. You would expect him to be fired. Their congressmen have quit the Congress. They've resigned. Some of them have announced that they're not going to run for re-election because they've been charged with allegations of misconduct. You would expect a person like that to be fired, and some have been fired. However, in the case of James Comey, it wasn't sexual misconduct. There were no allegations of misconduct. The problem was that he wouldn't cooperate with Trump. Trump met with him and asked him to lay off on the Michael Flynn investigation, and Comey wouldn't do that. Well, there it is. In trying to get him to not investigate Flynn, who was guilty, influence, obstruct, impede the due administration of justice. That was the commission of the crime. And Comey talked about that when he was investigated. Was it the House Intelligence? No, maybe it was the Senate Intelligence Committee. It was on TV where he actually talked about it. And he was smart enough that immediately after that meeting with Trump, he documented what happened in the meeting. He got into the car. He was being driven back to the FBI. He was sitting there with his laptop, and he started detailing, writing up what had happened in that meeting. And that's really important when it comes to a court case. When you can document what happened, and the closer to the actual commission of the crime, shall we say, the closer you can do that to when it actually happened, the more weight the documentation has in court. First thing he did was start documenting, and he sent copies to people to make sure that those documentation was going to be protected. There's the situation with Comey. It's the same thing that brought down Nixon when he fired Archibald Cox. He was a special prosecutor, Archibald Cox. It was seen as obstruction of justice because Archibald Cox was the special prosecutor who was investigating what was done at Watergate. Okay? Now, taking the question a little bit further toward Robert Mueller. The National Review, which is a conservative publication, I'll read news from conservative as well as liberal media. A conservative publication, the National Review, said that Mueller wasn't fired. Trump wanted to fire him, but he wasn't fired. Therefore, no dismissal, no crime. Yes, possibly, but no. And it was the reason why was because Trump committed the intent. They would get into the crime of intent. He committed the intent to fire Mueller by telling his House counsel, Doug McGahn, train going by, good timing, telling Doug McGahn, you go fire Mueller. Let's read this thing again. Influences, obstructs, or impedes, or endeavors. There's the crime, or endeavors to influence, obstruct, or impede the due administration of justice. Endeavors. There's the crime right there. He gave the word. And it was such, the way it was done was, when it comes to committing the intent, a person is guilty at that point if there's a clear indication that he would have gone ahead with the crime unless someone stopped him. He was full on intent of doing what he said he was going to do, right? So in this case, there's a credible threat. You go fire Mueller. And the only thing that stopped that was McGahn said no. He's not going to do it. He would quit his job first before he would do it because it's a commission of a crime. It's obstruction of justice, and it would make McGahn an accessory to that crime. Okay, taking this even further on, I'm going to give you a silly example. Okay, let's say I shoot somebody and they don't die. I'm innocent. No one died. It's not murder. But you see, there's a law about attempted murder. See, it's that the attempt is the crime. It's not the murder in this case because there was no murder. It's the attempt. And that's where you start getting into this area of law that is crime of intention, that just saying to McGahn, you go fire Mueller. McGahn is called into into the investigation. He has to speak before the FBI. Mueller's in the back taking notes, and they ask him, did Trump give the order to you to go fire Mueller? All he has to say is yes. There's the evidence. It was like when Trump spoke to Lester Holt about firing Comey. Holt asked him about firing Comey. Why did you do it? And he said, it's on TV. It's evidence now. He said, well, it's because of the Russia investigation. Obstruction of justice. In a case like that, there's an admission of obstruction of justice. Now, where this all comes down eventually is public opinion. And that's what a lot of Congress is concerned about right now. Depending upon when Mueller releases his findings, when it all comes down, that could influence public opinion. If it happens before the fall elections, a lot of Republicans could lose their congressional seats if the people in America are riled up enough. Obama saw it. Wave of Democratic voting in 2008 when he ran for president. But in 2010, Congress swung over to the Republicans. And that's why he had such a difficult time getting legislation passed, because the Republicans then had the reputation of being the party of no. So that's where there's a lot of concern. That's why I'm interested in what's going to happen this fall, because there's a lot of opinion out there, but there's also a lot of evidence out there. It appears as though someone's going to get axed, whether you want to believe it or not. But there's so much known already. There's even an investigation right now that's being started by Deutsche Bank against Jared Kushner because there were some suspicious transfers of money. And Deutsche Bank was already subpoenaed by Mueller. And anything they find out now in their investigation about these suspicious money transfers, they've already pledged they're going to turn that over to Robert Mueller. It's out there, folks. I mean, maybe you don't want to believe it. Maybe you don't want it to happen. For some people, it's just denial. For some people, it's, oh, I wish this wasn't going to happen. I can't change the facts that are already out there. There's a lot of investigation, and you can start conspiracy theories and say, well, it's all being rigged by the Democrats. The Clintons are behind it, whatever. But the FBI is smarter than that. They're going to get the facts right. So that hopefully will explain a little bit more, answer some of those questions about why can't Trump fire directors? Well, he can for the right reasons, such as sexual impropriety, but he can't fire them for the wrong reason, like Nixon did, to stop an investigation of a crime. That's obstruction of justice. So there's some answers for you. Thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe. Tell others about what I'm doing. And again, thanks for listening.